What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here with our final Week 8 college football preview, and we have our SWAC game of the week as Prairie View travels down to Baton Rouge to take on Southern this weekend down in Mumford Stadium, down in the swamps, man. And my guy B-Dub it isn't here, but I already know who he's going to pick. I already know B-Dub is a Southern guy because he lives over there in Baton Rouge, but we got to break this huge game down. This game is going to go such a long way in determining which of these teams has a realistic shot at making the SWAC championship and who might just kind of fall back to the pack as a pretender in that tough SWAC West division. Everything is on the line when Southern and Prairie View meet this weekend. Let's set the stage, man. Let's get some of these storylines. Prairie View enters this matchup 5-1, 4-0 in the SWAC. Their only loss of the season coming early this season to number 12 ranked Incarnate Word. They've really kind of been the Cinderella story of the SWAC behind Jawan Pass, a stout defense, and many are viewing this as their first real test in the SWAC, and they have everything to prove this weekend, even being the favorite here. They got everything to prove because not a lot of people think they're realistic contenders. So they're here to prove that they are a legit SWAC title contender. On the other side, Southern comes into this game and it's a must win. I said it on the roundtable earlier this week. If Southern loses this game, pack it up for next year. There's no chance that you're going to find Southern in the SWAC championship, especially at 3-3, 2-1 in the SWAC right now, and they need this win so bad. I mean, especially with the brutal schedules that they have ahead of them. They've utilized a powerful rushing attack to overwhelm opponents, and they're coming off arguably their biggest win of the season over Arkansas Pine Bluff, 34-7. And a win this weekend, for their homecoming with the crowd already, from what I've heard, being sold out, this could spark a late season run for Southern this weekend to the SWAC championship. Now, the Jaguars have absolutely dominated this series over its history. It goes back to 1949. Southern leads the series 50-19 and currently holds a 4-game win streak as the last Prairie View win came in 2015 in Baton Rouge. So that's where it's going to go down this weekend. So this is a huge game for just Prairie View's confidence in this series, especially as they've been historically dominated. But let's get into the keys of the game for this weekend. It don't matter about all that. Let's get to this weekend. The key for Prairie View really lies in the same formula that they've used to get here. And they're one of the most balanced offenses in the SWAC, and it shows week in and week out. And this weekend, they're going to have to be balanced this weekend. They can't over rely on the run game. They can't rely on pass to air it out every play. They're going to have to be balanced and take advantage of a Southern defense giving up over 370 yards per game. They're allowing over 5.5 yards per play this season, and they're going to be banged up potentially this weekend. You look at Prairie View, they've rushed for over 130 every single game this season, and they've thrown for over 180 every single game this season and thrown for over 200 in all but one. They've ranked number one in the SWAC with over 436 yards per game right now. They rank above Jackson State. They rank above Southern. I mean, they are the number one team in the SWAC in terms of yards per game in the SWAC. But looking at this Prairie View offense, they're the only team in the SWAC as well with over 1,000 yards, both rushing and passing, and they're averaging over 6 yards per play, which ranks third in the SWAC right now. So this offense can do it both ways. They can be explosive, and they can put up yards and points on the scoreboard. But on top of that, you look at what Southern could be missing this weekend. According to HBCU Game Day, they could be missing Jordan Lewis at DN, Devin Cotton at defensive tackle, Tamoris Smith at free safety. So this Panthers offense has some places where they can utilize and take advantage of some younger players having to step into those spots if these guys can't go. I heard a lot of these guys are game time decisions this week, so we will definitely see. But it all starts with Jawan Pass for Prairie View. He's been the leader of the offense all season long. He's a true dual threat guy, and his deep ball is where he thrives, and that is somewhere where he can take advantage over the top against the Southern defense. You look at him with over 1,500 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, 5 picks, and two rushing touchdowns. He's got, like I said, one of the deep balls, one of the best deep balls in the SWAC. But the intermediate game is where I really want to see Juwan Pass take his game to the next level. But the number one key this weekend, especially when you're facing a team that runs the ball and tries to control the clock like Southern, you cannot turn the ball over, give them short fields, and give them extra possessions, because your possessions are going to become much more meaningful as Southern tries to limit it when they try to control the game, get those 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe even 10-minute drives going with that run game. But a lot has been made from some people about passes turnovers, but the underlying thing here is he has not thrown an interception since week 3 against Houston Baptist. And 3 of his 5 interceptions came against Incarnate Word in week 2. So it shows how he has consistently improved over the year. And week in and week out, he is getting more efficient with the football. He has some of the best completion percentages over these past few weekends, in terms of his game. So let's not just say, oh, he's a turnover machine, because he's really turned it around late in, over the past few games this season. But the other aspect of Prairie View that I think a lot of people overlook, especially a lot of fans and people who cover the SWAC, is this rushing attack for Prairie View. It actually ranks second in the SWAC right now in total rushing yards, and this team's averaging over 175 yards per game on the ground this weekend. And they have some real depth at running back. You look at Jaden Stewart, their leading rusher, with 278 on the ground, 2 touchdowns, over 5 yards per carry. And also Lindemia Brooks, 254 on the ground, over 5 yards per carry as well, and 2 rushing touchdowns. And then Christian Mosley can come in and give you over 4.5 yards per carry and almost 200 yards on the ground. And that's not even including what Pass can do on the ground. And we've seen how explosive he can be. Just go watch the UAPB tape. So they're going to rotate a lot of guys in at running back. They're going to try to keep the pressure off of Pass. And when you try to load the box to stop this rushing attack, Jawan Pass can get loose over the top and uncork some real threats downfield. And that's where Southern's going to have to thrive on defense. They cannot let Pass do what they let Andrew Bodie do just 2 weeks ago when they faced Texas Southern on the road. So they have to try to keep Prairie View off balance on offense. If they can establish the run and pass, Prairie View is going to win this game. Now, on the other side of the football, anybody who has watched the Southern game knows what the key is for Southern. I don't care if you watch, anytime you cover Southern, the obvious key is the rushing attack, which ranks number 1 in the SWAC by over 400 total yards. And they're averaging over 235 on the ground per game and over 6 yards per carry as a team this weekend. But when you look at this weekend, this is going to be the highest ranked defense that they have faced all season long. Prairie View's defense is only allowing 120 yards per game on the ground, less than 4 yards a carry for the season, and they rank 3rd in the SWAC and rush defense, only behind FAMU and Jackson State. The weaknesses are there, though, for Southern to take advantage of. Prairie View had their worst rush defense game last week against Bethune-Cookman, allowing over 240 on the ground. Zach Rossi and this offense have to study that film and try to pick them apart like Bethune did, using that talented running back in Bird for Bethune, and take it and apply it to what Southern wants to do this weekend. When you look at the wide variety of ways Southern can run the ball and the real depth they have at the running back room, Prairie View is going to have to stay fresh on the D line to counteract this. But it starts with Kobe Dillon, of course. 520 yards rushing, over 10 yards per carry for the entire season, 4 rushing touchdowns. Devin Ben, 364, 3 rushing touchdowns. And also you got Craig Nelson averaging over 6.5 yards per carry. You have 3 guys that can really get loose and make plays happen, with the run, with this running attack. So Prairie View has to keep these guys contained. And that's not even including what these quarterbacks can do with their legs, who we're going to talk about right now. Because the real other key for Southern, they don't have to be as balanced as Prairie View because they don't have that type of passing attack. Yes, you can be a run-first team, but what you have to do is show enough balance in the passing game and enough explosion and enough execution to keep Prairie View honest with this defensive scheme. If Prairie View can put 8 in the box and stop this run and tag, and they don't respect your downfield passing attack, that's going to cause major troubles for Southern. So, I don't know exactly who's going to be the starter. I was reading about how it should be Bubba McDaniel, but then also some people expect to see Ladarius Skelton get some time like he did last week. But I'm assuming McDaniel will be the guy to start for Southern. He's the better quarterback overall, in my opinion. But you look at McDaniel, over 640 yards passing, 6 touchdowns, and only a pick, while completing almost 70% of his passes. While Skelton, he's also explosive. He's more explosive on the ground as a run threat, but he has 4 passing touchdowns and 3 picks. I'm expecting McDaniel to be perfect for what Southern needs to do against this Prairie View defense, but we'll see more. And if you know more, if you're connected to Southern, more than I am, comment below who y'all think is going to start and why. But going to the matchup before we wrap up this episode, man, for me, the entire line of scrimmage battle for me is going to be important. That's Southern's O-line versus Prairie View's defensive line, along with Southern's defensive line against this Prairie View offensive line. Because when you look at the keys for the game, if you can't compete at the point of attack against the Southern offense, you're going to be in for a very, very long day because they're going to run it right down your throat. But if you can get pressure on these QBs when they have to take their shots, you can make them very one-dimensional and force these quarterbacks into some mistakes. But on the other side, you can't let Jawan Pass sit in the pocket all day if you're Southern. You got to get after him, get him off his spot, pressure him, and force him into mistakes because he is also prone to throw some picks if you get into his face. So that's why the entire line of scrimmage battle for me is so important. When you look at Southern's O-line, they had all 5 O linemen on the first or second team all SWAC All American list, and that shows what type of talent they have up front. They're allowing the 4th fewest sacks in the SWAC with only 10 through 6 games, and of course they're paving the way for the leading rushing attack in the SWAC. But this is going to be one of their toughest tests that they've had thus far this season because this Prairie View defensive line has 16 sacks this season, which is 4th in the SWAC, over 50 tackles for loss, and they've been very, very solid at slowing down the run and getting after the quarterback and keeping teams from just putting a lot of points on the board. The only team to really score a lot of points on this Prairie View defense is Incarnate Word, who's, like I said, a top 12 team in the country right now in FCS, and those guys are legit. So what's going to happen is, can Southern slow down Prairie View? And it all starts with Dumas at the defensive tackle spot, leading this team in sacks from the inside, which is just outrageous. They got to slow down because if you get pressure up the middle, that is a recipe for disaster for any offense. And then also an underrated guy for me is Rashad Powell at defensive end, 2.5 sacks over 7 tackles for loss. This is going to be a matchup that I think is going to go a very, very long way in determining who pulls this game out. And then also, let's give some credit here. No one has really talked about this. I don't know why. Prairie View's offensive line leads the SWAC in protecting the quarterback they've only allowed 6 total sacks through 6 games. That leads the SWAC this year. They actually have been the most efficient offensive line in terms of pass blocking, and they also have done a great job in paving the way for the run, which is 2nd in the SWAC. So for me, everyone talks about Southern's offensive line. Let's give Prairie View some respect. This offensive line is just as good in terms of on-field production right now. So that's going to be a key. They're going to have to keep that up against the Southern D-line that has some real studs. Now, whether Jordan Lewis plays, we'll see. Jalen Ivy's on that line. Also, both of those guys were first-team All-Americans for the SWAC. But Southern hasn't been generating the type of pressure that we've seen. They only rank 8th in the SWAC in sacks. They got less than 50 tackles for loss right now, but they do have the 5th best rushing defense in the SWAC. They just haven't been able to be as explosive off the edge, getting to the quarterback. But the one thing they do, and shout out to HBCU Game Day for this, they don't have a lot of QB hits. So if they can get pressure, they can get the quarterback down just because they're so athletic up front. But something's got to give. Either Southern has to get pressure on pass and slow down this rushing attack, or if this Prairie View offensive line continues to be this dominant, I got a tough time seeing anyone knock off Prairie View right now with that offensive line playing the way it is. So I think it's strength versus strength on both sides of this matchup. So that's going to really see what gives this offensive line battle, this defensive line battle for the line of scrimmage is going to be the sole key for me in this game. I'm so pumped to see it as a guy who played O-line. This is going to be the type of matchup where if you have any type of lineman in you, man, you were going to get very excited this weekend. But for my prediction, man, I've went back and forth and back and forth. I've talked to some Southern people. I don't even before I started recording, I didn't know who I was going to pick, but just based on all everything I've taken in, all the stuff I've watched, all the things I've read, all the studying I've done on these players, I trust Prairie View and them being just a tad bit healthier on the defensive side and being a bit more efficient to make a stop against Southern more than I trust Southern to stop Prairie View, especially with some of the key players on the defensive side of the ball that they're missing. So right now, I have Prairie View pulling out the big win in Baton Rouge, 38-34 over Southern this weekend to really take control of that SWAC West as we look ahead to that Alcorn having to play both of these teams, and that's really going to ultimately determine who wins this division. So right now, I just trust Prairie View's defense more than I trust Southern. So I got the Panthers winning by 4 points, 38-34. It's our game of the week. So make sure to subscribe and comment your score prediction and takeaways of the game below. If you predict the winner and the score correctly, you win our $50 Venmo giveaway, man. So make sure to comment that below now and go ahead and hit that subscribe button. But I appreciate y'all tuning in, man. If you're traveling down to Baton Rouge this weekend, y'all be safe. And man, I cannot wait to recap this game on Monday morning. But for right now, guys, the Blue Bloods are out.